Assalamualaikum and hi to all listeners. Today, my group will delve into 7-Eleven and My News sustainability reporting analysis. I hope you all enjoy. Before we begin, let me introduce our member. We have Nur ALLYSA KHAIRANIE, Nur ELIYA NAZIERA, RAIHAN HAZWANI, SITI Nur ALIAH and YULEEDIA. Let me take you through the convenient retail scenes in Malaysia. It's been growing fast, especially in our urban hubs. Why? Because people today want shopping that is quick, easy and always available. Whether it's grabbing a snack at midnight or picking up daily essentials on the way home. Convenience stores have become the go-to. You will find them near office, high-rise apartment and also transport station. They are everywhere. There are also two big players dominate this space, which are 7-Eleven and My News, and both are doing some pretty interesting things to stay ahead. Let's start with 7-Eleven Malaysia. They have been around since 1984 and are now the country's largest convenience store chain, with over 2,400 outlets nationwide. That's why their logo is so familiar. You will spot one almost anywhere you go. But they are not just resting on that. They have introduced concepts like 7 Cafe, which lets customers grab hot meals and drinks on the go. They also added digital perks like e-wallet payment and even parcel lockers. So, over the past 5 years, they have stayed profitable and delivered solid return to investors. Now, shifting over to My News Holding Berhad. It was founded in 1997 and used to be known as Bison Consolidated. Today, they run more than 670 outlets under multiple brands including My News, Siumat, WH Smith and Maru Coffee. What set them apart is their focus on lifestyle and food experiences. You will see a lot of Korean-inspired meals and snacks on their shelf. They even took a bold step by setting up their own food processing centers to improve quality and cut costs. Sure, they hit a bit of rough patch in early 2025 with a dip in earnings. But with plan to expand and boost margin, there are plenty of potential for a strong comeback. Now, why should Malaysian businesses care about aligning with both local and global standards? Simple, it builds trust. Investors, especially those who prioritize ESG, which are environmental, social and governance factors, want transparency. It also helps companies spot risk early, make better strategic decisions and enhance their reputation. And of course, staying compliant with Malaysian law ensure they remain competitive, not just locally, but on the global stage. To support this shift, the Malaysian governance introduced the National Sustainability Reporting Framework or NSRF in 2024. This framework now requires all public listed companies, whether they are on the main market or the ACE market, to report on sustainability matters. For now, the focus is mainly on climate-related information, aligning with Malaysia's broader goals of reaching net zero carbon emission in the year to come. And to make things smoother for businesses, the framework includes helpful tools like templates, policies and even learning resources to guide them through the process. Globally, we are seeing progress too. The International Sustainability Standards Board or ISSB has rolled out two major standards, which are IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. IFRS S1 sets out what general sustainability information companies need to report, and IFRS S2 zeroes in on climate-related risks, opportunities and greenhouse gas emission. What is great about this standard is that they aim to create consistency and clarity across industries and countries, so that everyone from investor to regulators is on the same page. So, the big takeaway is that sustainability reporting isn't just about ticking box. It's about being accountable, building resilience and doing business in a way that makes a positive impact for the long haul. Moving on with IFRS S1. Think of this one as the foundation. It outlines what kind of sustainability-related information a company should share, especially if that information could affect its financial performance. It built around 4 key pillars. First, governance. Who's in charge of making sure sustainability is taken seriously at the top level of the company? Second, strategy. How is the company planning for sustainability risks and opportunities? Third, risk management. What systems are in place to identify and handle these risks? And last but not least, metric and targets. What kind of data and goals are being tracked to measure progress? So, by covering these areas, S1 helps investors understand how a company is preparing for future challenges and opportunities related to sustainability. Now, IFRS S2 narrows the focus to one critical issue, climate. This standard asks companies to take a closer look at the climate-related risks they face. For example, physical risks like flood, wildfire or heat wave that can disrupt business operation. And transition risks such as changes in regulation, technology shift or evolving consumer preferences as we move toward a low-carbon economy. S2 also asks businesses to report their greenhouse gas emission along with any climate-related goals they have set, like becoming carbon neutral or reducing emission by a certain percentage. So when you put it all together, IFRS S1 and S2 create a clear framework for companies to talk about sustainability in a way that is structured, honest and useful, not just regulators, but also for investor, customer and also the public. Now, let's take a closer look at one of Malaysia's most recognizable brands in the retail space, which are 7-Eleven Malaysia. First off, what do? Well, they are the largest 24-hour convenience store operator in the country. Through their subsidiary, 7-Eleven Malaysia Sdn Bhd, they run and franchise outlets under the global 7-Eleven name. And it's not just snacks and drinks. They offer personal care items and ready-to-eat meals and also digital services like bills payment, mobile reloads, and parcel lockers. So it's no surprise that they have become a go-to stop for just about everything, especially for people on the move. Now, in terms of present, this is where things really stand out. 7-Eleven opened its very first store in 1984 right in Bukit Bintang. Fast forward to today, and they have grown to over 2,400 stores across Malaysia. That means they are serving close to 1 million customers every single day. With location in both urban and suburban areas, the brand has become a feature in daily Malaysian life. What about financial? 7-Eleven Malaysia has been doing well. Over the years, they have shown steady revenue growth and remain consistently profitable. This success is largely thanks to strong brand recognition and efficient operation. Plus, their franchise model helps spread their presence while creating opportunities for local entrepreneurs. It was a smart move that keeps their momentum going while diversifying their revenue stream. So all in all, 7-Eleven Malaysia isn't just keeping up. It was staying ahead by blending convenience, innovation and a strong local footprint. Let's now turn to another big player in Malaysia's convenient retail scene, which is MyNews. This brand has a local story. It started in 1996 as just a small newsstand, and look at it now. Today, MyNews is a household name with a strong presence in the industry. The company operates several well-known brands like MyNews, SEU, which is Korean-inspired, WH Smith in partnership with WH Smith UK, and also Maru Coffee. What makes them stand out? They are not just a retailer. They have invested in their own food production facilities so they can supply ready-to-eat meals and fresh bakery items directly to their store. That kind of control over quality and cost is a smart move. In terms of market presence, they have grown a lot. With over 670 outlets across Malaysia, they are mainly focused on high traffic areas in urban setting. They serve more than 6 million customers every month, and they have built a team of over 2,000 staff. Their partnership with Japanese companies like Gourmet Kinea and Ryo Yupan have helped level up their food offering, bringing in both quality and international appeal. Financially, it's been a mixed bag lately. The company has continued to expand and diversify its brand, but like many others in the sector, they have felt some earning pressure in recent quarters. That said, their investment in food innovation and their store network are expected to boost profit margin and drive a stronger recovery down the road. So all in all, MyNews isn't just surviving, it's adapting, evolving and betting big on quality and customer experience to grow even further.
At 7-Eleven Malaysia Holding Berhad, the governance of sustainability begins with a strong formalized governance system that is well aligned with IFRS S1 and international best practice. The company's board of directors play a proactive role in sustainability governance and has delegated structured responsibilities to the Risk Management and Sustainability Committee (RMSC), which is a dedicated board-level committee made up of senior independent and non-independent directors. Supporting the RMSC is the SWG, which is Sustainability Working Group, an operational team that includes representatives from various departments such as finance, operations, procurement, logistics and marketing. This group is tasked with executing ESG strategies, conducting GHG accounting, including Scope 1, 2 and 3 emission, engaging with stakeholders, performing materiality assessment and applying climate scenario planning. The company also provides sustainability training to ensure the board and management awareness and embeds ESG considerations in areas such as energy use, waste management and regulatory compliance. For MyNews Holding Berhad, the governance of sustainability begins with the BOD, Board of Directors, which carry the ultimate responsibility for ensure the long-term value creation of the group. The board is advised by two key internal structures, which are the MyNews ESG Sustainability Committee (MESGSC) and the ESG Working Committee (EWC). The MESGSC made up of senior management personnel, which will task with the strategic oversight of sustainability issue, formulating ESG direction and aligning the group's initiative with stakeholder expectation. Under MESGSC, the ESG Working Committee functions as an operational team that implements ESG programs like energy saving, recycling and ethical sourcing. In addition, the Risk Management Committee (RMC) support the board in assessing risks, including ESG risks. However, ESG risks are discussed more generally, and there is no clear reference to climate-related risk governance such as physical risk and transition risk. There is no evidence that the board regularly discuss climate issue, nor any indication that directors have received training in sustainability or climate-related matters. There is also no formal alignment with IFRS S1 and TCFD framework, and climate consideration are not explicitly integrated into the enterprise risk management system. And in conclusion, both companies demonstrate strong alignment with IFRS S1 in its governance structure and process for managing sustainability risks and opportunities. 7-Eleven Malaysia Holding Berhad adopts a far more comprehensive and forward-looking sustainability energy. The company's approach is framed around several international frameworks, including the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure (TCFD), the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and national policy supporting Malaysian transition to a low-carbon economy. 7-Eleven climate strategy is anchored by a public commitment to achieving net zero emission by 2050. To support this long-term ambition, the company is developing interim targets and implementation roadmaps, ensure that the progress is not only tracked but also embedded in daily operation. From an operational standpoint, sustainability is integrated across several dimensions of the business, from energy efficient 7 cafes store design to low carbon logistics, waste management, and green procurement practice. Sustainability KPI are reviewed quarterly by the board, reflecting a top-down governance structure that is actively engaged with climate goals. And for Minus Holding, they display a more operationally focused sustainability approach with only partial alignment to IFRS S1. Minus commit broadly to sustainable value and stakeholder interest via an ESG framework. However, its disclosure lacks specificity, particularly in climate-related strategy and long-term risk integration. In their 2024 sustainability statement, Minus identified 12 material sustainability topics such as energy efficiency, waste management, responsible sourcing, and employee welfare. While the company acknowledged environmental issues like carbon emission and electricity usage, it has not developed a formal roadmap or transition strategy for addressing climate change. There are no long-term climate targets such as net zero, and the company doesn't currently use climate scenario analysis. To be concluded, 7-Eleven Malaysia disclosed a clear climate integrated strategic approach aligned with IFRS S1, while Minus Holding disclosure are more operationally focused and show only partial alignment. When evaluating the risk management framework used for sustainability, 7-Eleven demonstrates a structured and forward-looking approach that aligns closely with the expectation of IFRS S1. The company integrates sustainability and climate-related risks into its overall ERM framework, overseen by the RMSC at the board level. In their 2024 annual report, 7-Eleven identified both physical risks and transition risks. These risks are not treated in isolation. Instead, 7-Eleven apply climate risk heat maps and qualitative assessment to evaluate and prioritize risks, influencing decisions around supply chain design, energy use in outlets, and business continuity planning. Although 7-Eleven doesn't fully adopt TCFD style scenario analysis, its disclosures show clear integration of climate risk into enterprise-wide decision making, which supports strong alignment with IFRS S1 risk management disclosure requirement. Minus Holding Berhad adopts a more traditional and general approach to risk management with only partial alignment to IFRS S1. The company employs an ERM system based on a 3 lines of defense model, as described in Part 2 of its 2024 annual report. Risk management is supervised by the RMC, while ESG-related matters are addressed by the MESGSC and executed by the ESG Working Committee. However, the report lacks any mention of climate-specific risks such as floods, heat waves, or regulatory transitions, and no tools like risk heat maps, scenario analysis, or financial impact assessment are applied to sustainability risks. This absence of climate risk quantification, limited board-level discussion, and lack of integration into financial or operational planning indicates that Minus sustainability risk framework remain compliance-focused rather than strategic, falling short of IFRS S1 call for transparent and integrated risk management process. To be concluded, 7-Eleven demonstrates strong alignment with IFRS S1 through integrated risk management, and Minus Holding show only partial alignment with general ERM practice but limited focus on climate-related sustainability risks. In terms of climate-related metrics and targets, 7-Eleven Malaysia Holding Berhad demonstrates strong alignment with IFRS S1 by providing comprehensive disclosure across all 3 scopes of greenhouse gas GHG emission and establishing long-term climate goals. The company reports detailed data on Scope 1, direct emission, Scope 2, indirect energy emission, and Scope 3, indirect value chain emission. with Scope 3 covering areas such as employee commuting and business travel. Additionally, 7-Eleven has made a public commitment to achieve net zero emission by 2050 and monitor progress through structured ESG scorecard and KPI, which are reviewed by the Risk Management and Sustainability Committee. 7-Eleven also identified both physical climate risks such as extreme weather and flooding, and transition risks like regulatory changes and shifting consumer demand. These risks are clearly mapped in the climate heat map and are fully embedded into the company's ERM and financial planning process, including CAPEX and OPEX decisions. Minus Holding Berhad only provides basic GHG emission reporting limited to Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission from its headquarter and distribution center. There is no reporting on Scope 3 emission, and the company has not announced any net zero commitment or long-term climate targets. And Minus acknowledge general ESG risk doesn't clearly differentiate physical from transition climate risk, nor does it quantify or integrate them into decision making. The company lacks structured ESG performance tools such as scorecard or heat maps, and there is no evidence of scenario analysis, climate KPI or board level climate oversight comparable to 7-Eleven. Based on this finding, 7-Eleven Malaysia shows full alignment with IFRS S1 by measurable metrics, clear targets and robust governance. Meanwhile, Minus disclosure remain partial and operational, lacking the strategic depth and climate accountability aspect under IFRS S1.
Under IFRS S2, governance require companies to clearly disclose how climate-related risks are governed at the board and management level. 7-Eleven Malaysia complies strongly by signing responsibility to a formal board-level risk management and sustainability committee, which is RMSC. This RMSC meets quarterly and play an active role in overseeing climate-related disclosure, energy strategy and performance tracking. Their responsibilities are clearly defined in the company's ESG governance structure. In contrast, Minus Holding integrates oversight of sustainability into their general risk management committee. However, there is no mention of a dedicated sustainability of climate subcommittee, and no detail is provided on how frequently climate issues are discussed or escalated to the board. Their reporting is broad and mostly narrative, which show limited alignment with IFRS S2 governance expectation. IFRS S2 requires organizations to describe how climate-related risks and opportunities are integrated into their business model and strategy. 7-Eleven Malaysia recognizes climate change as a material strategy issue. Their strategy includes measurable effort like reducing electricity use, piloting greenhouse store concept, and shifting towards renewable energy. They also report on transition risks such as carbon pricing and have integrated climate-related thinking into their overall retail transformation. Minus Holding acknowledges similar risks but provide less detail on how their strategy directly addresses climate impacts. While they focus on environmental sustainability or resource efficiency, they do not describe specific scenario pathway, climate-related capital allocation or transition plans. Therefore, their climate strategy appears less developed and less aligned with the forward-looking requirements of IFRS S2. IFRS S2 also requires companies to explain how they identify, assess and manage climate-related risks. 7-Eleven Malaysia disclosed a structured approach. They integrate climate risk into their enterprise risk management system. Their RMSC actively monitor and update the risk register to include both physical risks like heatwave or floods and transition risks such as stricter emission regulation. Business continuity plans are reviewed with climate risk scenario in mind. By comparison, Minus Holding recognizes that climate change poses a risk to operation, particularly in supply chains and cost structure. However, they do not describe how their risks are identified, monitored or prioritized. There is no evidence of formal tools, risk mapping or escalation processes. This indicates a gap in risk management alignment under IFRS S2. A major pillar of IFRS S2 is the disclosure of climate-related metrics, especially Scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions and reduction target. 7-Eleven Malaysia provide full disclosure of Scope 1 and Scope 2 GHG emission. Their electricity consumption is quantified, tracked yearly and linked to reduction goals. They also started estimating Scope 3 emission by engaging with logistic provider and supplier, particularly in packaging and distribution. Target for emission reduction are stated clearly and progress is shown in the sustainability performance dashboard. Minus Holding, on the other hand, does not disclose Scope 1 emission and provide only a narrative summary of energy used for Scope 2. No quantified GHG data is shared. Scope 3 emissions are acknowledged as important but not yet reported. There is also no emission target disclosed. As a result, their alignment with IFRS S2 metrics and targets is minimal. Under IFRS S2, scenario analysis is an essential element to evaluate how different climate pathway temperature increase could affect business operation and strategy. For 7-Eleven Malaysia, the annual report does acknowledge that scenario analysis is important for assessing climate-related risks. However, there is no detailed disclosure on how scenario analysis is conducted, what assumptions are applied, or what results have been derived. This shows that while there is awareness of the needs for scenario plannings, it remains an area for improvement. The group has stated its intention to strengthen this aspect of reporting in future cycle. Similarly, my news holding also recognized that climate change could have long-term implications for operation and supply chains. Their report mentioned that scenario analysis will be considered in future sustainability disclosure, but there is no evidence of current scenario modelling or quantitative assessments. Overall, both companies demonstrate only partial alignment with IFRS 2 expectation in this area, highlighting an opportunity to enhance the transparency of their climate risk assessment. To summarize, we can clearly see that 7-Eleven Malaysia has developed more structured, transparent and aligned practices across all IFRS S2 areas. From governance to scenario plannings, their disclosure show real progress in integrating climate consideration into business decision making. My news holdings show basic awareness of climate risk but fall short in terms of structure, data disclosure and forward-looking analysis. For full IFRS S2 alignment, they would need to improve their metrics, set clear targets and introduce formal scenario planning framework.
Now I will explain the profitability performance of 7-Eleven and MyNews using 3 key ratio. 7-Eleven outperformed MyNews across all 3 indicators. For net profit margin, 7-Eleven was recorded 1.32% compared to MyNews at 1.08% and reflecting better cost control. For ROA, 7-Eleven recorded 1.57% while MyNews had 1.36% showing stronger asset efficiency. The most significant gap was in ROE because 7-Eleven achieved 11.25% while MyNews only reached 3.61% and indicating much higher shareholder value creation. This figure confirms that 7-Eleven is financially stronger and more profitable. This directly supports their ability to invest in sustainability initiatives, especially those aligned with IFRS S1 and S2. With this financial strength, 7-Eleven has implemented a wide range of ESG initiatives. These include the 7E Go Green Waste to Life campaign to reduce their carbon footprint and detailed closure of Scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions alongside a clear climate strategy aligned with IFRS S2. They also engage in a meaningful social programs such as Semurni Kasih and other food donation drive. Importantly, they have also outlined a structured transition plan towards full IFRS S1 and S2 compliance. In contrast, MyNews have lower profitability and limits their ability to carry out large-scale ESG program. However, they have made smaller effort within their capacity. For example, they opened an eco-friendly CU outlet with LED lighting, smart air conditioning and waste sorting. However, they have not disclosed Scope 1 and Scope 2 or aligned with global framework like IFRS S2, GRI or SDG. In conclusion, 7-Eleven have strong profitability, enable more advanced and structured sustainability practice, while MyNews focus on low cost, small scale ESG action and reflecting their limited financial strength. Now, I will continue with efficiency ratio for 7-Eleven and MyNews. For this ratio, it focuses on 2 key indicators. The first one is asset turnover. 7-Eleven recorded 1.19 times, while MyNews recorded 1.25 times. This means MyNews is slightly more efficient in using its asset to generate revenue. Second, inventory turnover. 7-Eleven achieved 5.21 times, MyNews achieved 5.17 times. This indicates that 7-Eleven managed its stock slightly more efficiently, turning over inventory faster, which reduced storage time and waste. Now, relating this to sustainability practice, both companies demonstrate an efficient use of resources which align with IFRS S1, that focusing on operational sustainability and responsible resource use. For 7-Eleven, the faster inventory turnover is supported by initiatives like full redistribution under Semurni Kasih and Lend a Helping Hand, and store upgrade with energy efficient system like LED lighting and improved air conditioning. Meanwhile, MyNews' stronger asset turnover relates to their eco-friendly CU outlet which use LED lighting, smart air conditioning and waste management system. They also monitor energy use through Scope 1 and 2 tracking. In conclusion, both companies reflect operational efficiency in different ways. MyNews through asset and 7-Eleven through inventory, and both align their practice with IFRS S1 sustainability principle.
Both companies have current ratios below 1, indicating that they may have trouble paying off their short-term liabilities with their current assets, which means they may struggle to fund big investment, especially for sustainability projects like energy-saving technologies or eco-friendly packaging. In 7-Eleven's annual report, the company talks about investing in energy-efficient technologies such as LED lighting and recyclable packaging that can refer to page 36. These projects are capital-intensive, meaning they need significant upfront investment. Given 7-Eleven's low liquidity, it may not have enough cash flow to fund these projects without external financing. This is where green bonds or sustainability loans come in, allowing the company to access capital to fund its sustainability goals while avoiding taking on too much short-term debt. So now let's see the point of view from MyNews. MyNews is focusing on eco-friendly packaging and local sourcing that can refer from page 35 to 37. This initiative also requires substantial capital investment to switch to sustainable packaging and to support suppliers who meet sustainability standards. MyNews' low liquidity makes it difficult to fund these capital-heavy sustainable projects. Therefore, MyNews might also have to seek external financing such as green bonds or ESG-linked loans to cover these costs. Both companies are positioning themselves for sustainable growth, but MyNews has a stronger ability to leverage its low debt to support green initiative, where 7-Elevens may need more careful management of its financial leverage and seek external financing for major sustainability projects. With high leverage, 7-Eleven may face challenge in funding sustainability projects internally. For example, its initiative like energy-saving technologies, recyclable packaging, and waste reduction requires significant investment. Due to its high debt, 7-Eleven would likely need to rely on green bonds or sustainability-linked loans to fund these projects while avoiding further financial strain. So next, MyNews benefits from low leverage, which gives its greater flexibility to fund sustainability projects such as eco-friendly packaging and local sourcing from both internal cash flow and external financing. This financial flexibility allows MyNews to invest in green initiatives without taking on excessive debt.
Now, I will be presenting the evolution of reporting quality for 7-Eleven Malaysia 2024 annual report. First, let's look at their comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness refers to how complete and detailed a company's sustainability reporting is, especially in addressing the key areas under IFRS S1 and S2. 7-Eleven Malaysia 2024 annual report demonstrates strong comprehensiveness by covering all IFRS S1 components including governance, strategy, risk, metric and financial connectivity. It explains the roles of the board, the risk management and sustainability committee, the sustainability working group and integrate ESG risks into its risk management system. Under IFRS S2, the company disclosed scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions including employee committing and set clear targets such as 100% recyclable packaging, store energy efficiency by 2030 and 20,000 CSR hours. The report also covers broad ESG issues like gender equality and anti-corruption. This disclosure shows strong alignment with IFRS and stakeholder needs. Next, the clarity. Clarity refers to how well the information is organized, understandable and accessible to readers. 7-Eleven Malaysia report is structured in clear sections. For example, governance, climate action and stakeholder engagement. It uses visual tools such as bullet points, infographic and GHG emission table to present data in a simple way. The materiality matrix is also included to help readers to understand which issue matter most to the company and its stakeholder. In addition, the report uses consistent language, color-coded icons and clear heading which make it easy to follow even for non-experts. These features make the report visually appealing and help ensure that key sustainability messages are effectively communicated. Then the comparability. Comparability refers to how easily sustainability information can be assessed over time or against other companies. A comparable report uses consistent metrics, format and framework to allow performance tracking and benchmarking. In its 2024 annual report, 7-Eleven Malaysia presents year-on-year data on the key indicators such as GHG emission, electricity usage and CSR initiative. It uses standard measurement units like tons of CO2 equivalent and making progress easy to track. The company also adopts global frameworks like GRI, TCFD and ISO 26000 which use standardized indicators for ESG reporting. This ensures the report is not only consistent across years but also comparable with other companies in the same industry. Lastly, the company uses other frameworks. In addition to IFRS S1 and S2, 7-Eleven Malaysia uses several global frameworks to strengthen its sustainability reporting. This includes GRI for ESG disclosure, TCFD for climate risk and scenario analysis, and ISO 26000 for social responsibility. The company also aligned with UN SDG and is part of the FTSE for Good Bursa Malaysia Index, which benchmark ESG performance. This framework support and complement IFRS standard. For example, TCFD aligned with IFRS S2 and GRI support broader ESG reporting under IFRS S1. By using this framework, the company ensures its reporting is internationally recognized, comparable and stakeholder focused. In conclusion, 7-Eleven Malaysia sustainability reporting is comprehensive, clear and comparable and aligned with the global frameworks. This reflects a strong commitment to transparency, ESG performance and long-term sustainable growth. Now, I will continue my explanation for MyNews Holding Berhad. First, comprehensiveness. Minus provide a decent level of disclosure, particularly in governance and risk management. The Board and Risk Management Committee are clearly involved in overseeing ESG matters, which align with IFRS S1. However, when it comes to strategy and metrics, the information is very general. Most importantly, Minus does not disclose any quantified climate-related data such as Scope 1, 2 or 3 GHG emission or specific environmental targets. This is a major gap, especially under IFRS S2, which require climate-specific metric and scenario analysis. So overall, the reporting is only partially comprehensive. Secondly, in terms of clarity, the report is well structured and easy to follow. Key sustainability information is placed under the Sustainability Statement, Corporate Governance Overview, and Risk Management section. The language is clear, formal and avoid technical jargons. The report also aligns with the Bursa Malaysian Sustainability Reporting Guide and made reference to the UN SDG, which adds consistency in framing. However, the company could further improve clarity by including visual like graphs, chart and table to support its disclosure. Still, we can conclude the Minus score well in terms of narrative clarity. Next, we move to the comparability. Minus has low comparability because it does not provide standardized metric or performance trends. There is no year-to-year data, no benchmarking and no GHG emission, making it hard to compare in progress over time or against other companies. While it references Bursa Sustainability Guide and align loosely with SDG, this does not sufficiently support consistent tracking. This limits its alignment with both IFRS S1 and S2, which encourage consistency and comparability across reporting periods and entities. Lastly, on the use of other framework, Minus does not mention any recognized standard like GRI, SASB or TCFD. Some disclosure do resemble TCFD elements such as governance and risk, but without any formal reference. TCFD align closely with IFRS S2, while GRI and SASB provide broader or industry-specific guidance that could support IFRS S1. Without referencing this framework, Minus reporting lack global alignments and transparency. In conclusion, while Minus demonstrates good structure and governance in its sustainability reporting, it still has significant gap, particularly in quantitative climate disclosure, comparability and formal use of international frameworks.
So let's move on to challenges by 7-Eleven in adopting IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. First, lack of internal system to link sustainability data with financial data. This is a challenge because sustainability data like energy use or waste reduction is collected separately from financial data. IFRS S1 requires company to show the connection between sustainability issues and financial impact, but 7-Eleven currently lacks the IT system and process to do this. Without integration, the reporting becomes fragmented and non-compliant. Example, CAPEX is evaluated through a sustainability lens, but they present no financial metrics because they likely don't have the system in place yet to measure and report ESG impacts on business value. Secondly, broadening the risk framework beyond environmental or economic issues. 7-Eleven traditionally focus on economic risk like cost control or supply chain. However, IFRS S1 expects companies to also assess social and environmental risks such as employee health, community backlash, or regulatory pressure. This is a challenge because it requires a mindset shift and expansion of the risk framework, which many companies are not structurally ready for. 7-Eleven is still operating with risk metrics that focus narrowly, so restructuring their entire risk governance to align with IFRS S1 is an organizational challenge, as updating frameworks, retraining teams, re-evaluating ERM practice might take time, budget and structural change. Next, evolving governance and decision-making structures for ESG oversight. IFRS S1 requires clear oversight who is responsible for ESG and how decisions are made. 7-Eleven is still developing its ESG governance with no formal roles or committees yet. This creates a challenge because without established structures, the company cannot ensure accountability or meet disclosure expectations. 7-Eleven states that they are in the process of strengthening this governance framework, which signals an ongoing transition, not a finished system. Now, let's focus on challenges adopting IFRS S2, which are difficulty measuring and reporting Scope 1 and 2 emissions. IFRS S2 requires company to report emissions accurately. However, measuring Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions involves complex data gathering across outlets and suppliers. 7-Eleven finds this is a challenge due to technical knowledge gaps and lack of reliable emission tracking tools. Next, inability to quantify the financial effects of climate risk. Even if 7-Eleven identify climate risks like flooding or heat waves, they struggle to translate those into financial figures. IFRS S2 demands quantified scenario analysis, which requires advanced tools and expertise. This becomes a challenge as the company lacks capacity to make those projections. In 7-Eleven's report, climate-related risks are acknowledged, such as weather disruption and regulation, but no financial modeling, stress testing, or quantified impact is provided. 7-Eleven is aware of the risk but lacks the tools or expertise to estimate their financial impact. And also, IFRS S2 expects strong governance around climate strategy, including board oversight. But for 7-Eleven, climate governance is still immature, with no designated climate leaders or strategy in place. This poses a challenge as it shows weak accountability and hinders proper reporting. The company admits it is still strengthening its climate oversight, so there is no formal structure yet on who handles climate decisions or how often they review it. So now move on to challenges by MyNews in adopting IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. First, lack of ESG data, infrastructure and expertise. MyNews currently does not have a system or team in place to collect, analyze and report ESG metrics such as energy usage, diversity data or social impact KPIs. This lack of infrastructure means they are not yet equipped to track or manage sustainability issues in a way that meets IFRS S1 requirement. Without baseline data, reporting becomes vague and non-decision useful, which defeats the purpose of integrated sustainability disclosure. Next is difficulty embedding sustainability into existing risk framework. Traditionally, MyNews risk framework focus on operational and financial traits like supply chain delays, market competition, or cost pressures. IFRS S1, however, requires companies to embed ESG risk into their enterprise risk management, such as the risk of reputational damage from poor labor practices or regulations, targeting single-use plastic. Because MyNews does not currently acknowledge this risk in its formal risk structures, it shows a gap between actual sustainability exposure and reported awareness. In MyNews report, ESG risks are completely missing. That shows they likely haven't adapted their risk system to cover issues like labor practices, supply chain ethics, or reputational damage. Making that shift is not easy. It means retraining teams, rewriting policy, and adding new risk control. That's a structural challenges during adoption. And also, they are facing challenges in restructuring governance to define ESG accountability. IFRS S1 expect companies to disclose who is responsible for sustainability matters and how oversight is carried out. For MyNews, governance around ESG is still vague. There are no designated ESG roles, no sustainability committee, and limited ESG visibility at the board level. Implementing such governance involves organizational restructuring, cultural change, and overcoming internal resistance, especially in companies that are smaller, traditional, or cost-conscious. In MyNews cases, there's no mention of any ESG committee or assigned ESG officer. Adopting IFRS S1 would require restructuring their governance system to include ESG oversight, set KPIs, and report performance regularly. That's a big shift, especially for a company that hasn't yet started this process. While in adopting IFRS S2, they face challenges in no reporting on GHG emissions, Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. IFRS S2 requires companies to report their carbon footprint. MyNews currently does not report of any of this. This is a major challenge because carbon accounting is complex and costly, often requiring technical tools, training, or external consultants, which smaller or retail-based companies may find difficult to prioritize or afford. Next, lack of internal capacity to assess climate risks financially. Even if climate risks are acknowledged, MyNews lacks the skills, tools, and data needed to evaluate the financial impacts of these risks. IFRS S2 calls for companies to use scenario analysis and provide financial estimates of potential climate effects, such as increased utility costs or supply disruption. This is a challenge because building this capacity takes time, expertise, and investment, often needing external support, which smaller companies may not be ready to adopt immediately. And also, climate governance requires structural change. Currently, MyNews does not have a dedicated climate strategy or formal board oversight of climate-related risks. IFRS S2 expects companies to embed climate risks into board-level decision-making and define clear governance process. This is not a simple change. It requires internal buy-in, policy rewriting, and perhaps even external stakeholder pressure. Structural governance change is typically slow and may face resistance from leadership not yet convinced of the urgency of climate actions. That kind of structural reform takes time and planning, and it is a key challenge for the company moving forward. Let me explain the opportunities improvement for sustainability reporting in 7-Eleven. First, by providing measurable progress against goals. While the company may set environmental or social targets, there is often limited information on how much has actually been achieved. Under IFRS S1, reporting progress with actual figures, like emission reductions or waste saved, enhance the transparency and builds trust with stakeholders. Second, disclosing external verification or assurance results. Many companies publish ESG data without third-party assurance, which can raise questions about accuracy. By including verified results from independent audits, 7-Eleven can increase the credibility of its disclosure and show commitment to high reporting standards. And lastly, including clear data-driven case study or impact stories. Stakeholders want to see real-world examples of sustainability in actions. For instance, showcasing how one store reduced plastic use or cut energy consumptions help makes the company's effort more relatable, measurable, and meaningful. By addressing these areas, 7-Eleven can align with global reporting expectations and strengthen stakeholder confidence. Okay, how about MyNews? First, enhancing ESG metrics and target disclosure. Currently, the reporting lacks clear, measurable goals. Under IFRS S1, companies are expected to provide decision-useful information, including performance indicators. By setting targets like carbon reductions or energy savings, MyNews can improve transparency and accountability. Second, improving climate risk and scenario analysis align with TCFD. IFRS S2 requires companies to assess how climate risk could financially impact their business under different scenarios. Right now, MyNews doesn't fully analyze these future risks. Including forward-looking analysis will help stakeholders understand the company's long-term resilience. And lastly, strengthening stakeholder engagement and materiality assessment. Identifying what matters most to customers, employees, and investors is crucial. IFRS S1 emphasizes materiality, meaning only relevant information should be reported. By actively engaging stakeholders, MyNews can prioritize the most impactful sustainability issues. These improvements will help MyNews align with global standards and build trust with its stakeholders.